And the only thing that bogged it down was these horrible controllers. Hate to keep harping on that, but
they're definitely a killer. I don't know if you can lube them up or anything. It doesn't seem like anything's going to help that thing. It needs some springs and some rubber pads.
It needs a complete redesign.
Yeah, and I'm sure some people have come out with some...
Yeah, there's ones you can get on eBay.
Oh, that and some ways to kind of fix that control stick, but it's wretched. It kind of sticks and just won't sit right. We had to, completely replace the circuit board on the inside, and most game systems, as long as the stuff's taken care of, it holds up. I mean, the system works great, the games work great, but the controllers are almost invariably bound to crap up over years of residue buildup.
Yeah, just the original controller design was just so bad that I don't know. Let's discuss something else beside the controller
before we smash it through the screen. But you're doing pretty good controlling it here. This is
an easy game because you only have to go left and right.
The games where you only have to go on one axis work well, but it's when you start trying to maneuver around
in different directions, that becomes killer.
And again, that was a terrible move because the Intellivision was the first system to successfully have a 16-axis control pad, and so you had a lot of movement on that, and it wasn't the best, but compared to this thing, it controlled a lot better. And this was Atari's solution, and it was not the right solution, I don't think. I mean, the Atari 2600's joypad is way better, but it just doesn't have as many degrees of movement.
Yeah, but it still doesn't hurt your hands when you're playing it.
They took a step back in a lot of ways with this controller. Just, it has some nice features, the fire buttons, you can twist the joypad and all that, but
now,
yeah, we're using the overlay on this one, which was another novel feature of the system that was a thing in the early 80s that...
Yeah, overlays were really stuck to these classic consoles. They never really carried on past this era.
And maybe Atari should have paid attention to that with the Jaguar, because they released that damn thing
yeah,
with how many buttons...
And overlays.
Did they have overlays for that?
Yeah, I believe so. There were slots where you could slide them in. I haven't seen a Jaguar in person yet, so don't quote me on that entirely.
We want these overlays.
But if they do have overlays, we'll definitely call it when we play the Jaguar.
Now, as far as the overlays go, these overlays are kind of a firmer plastic, where the television ones were kind of a cellophane type design, or type material.
It was mainly because of the button design. You know how the Intellivision ones were kind of smaller and more pushed down, where these Atari buttons are well pronounced.
Yeah, it's almost like a calculator keypad, because there's hard grids between each button, whereas the Intellivision and Coleco, their buttons were more on membrane, so you could slide across the buttons easier, which made them better for actually using in games, which we'd see the most use, I think, out of with the Intellivision. They were
really
pretty novel with that.
They really used every button on that controller they possibly could in most games.
All right, I think that's a pretty good look at Galaxian, a classic, and another great arcade port brought home, marred only by the shitty controller.
We're today, well, I guess now.
We're on version...
One something.
One something.
Version 1, we'll never know where it ends up
And we're
until it's
playing
edited.
Centipede right now, the arcade classic.
I hate spiders.
And our player, Ron, today hates spiders, and he just wants to let you know. So, Centipede is
This is nice looking.
Yes, it is. This looks a lot like the arcade game, and that's what we're seeing a lot as we go through these 5200 games. We're seeing so many good arcade ports, marred only by the crappy controller of the 5200. Luckily for Centipede, it's not going to be used much to go up and down, which you can do on the arcade version, and you can do it here too. So, the idea behind Centipede, I just want to get in the game real quick, is the Centipede is descending through the level, bouncing off of magic mushrooms, while spiders are chasing you down in the bottom. Basically, you just shoot the Centipede, it breaks up into pieces, and it'll get faster as it gets smaller, it gets slower to the screen. That's pretty much the whole idea. Rack up the points, destroy the Centipede, move on through the levels. So, I want to talk a little bit more about the 5200 and its look and its hardware and what it does. The 5200 is huge, as we've said before, but also has that sleek 80s look. Now, it didn't go so much with the Atari had the brown and the black. This is more of a silver and black system, but still it has very much that VCR 80s look to it. Also, one of the cool things about the Atari 5200 is it introduced the automatic TV switch box. On the Atari 2600, you would have to go up to your TV, switch it over to game mode from your TV mode, and then go back to your seat and play. Well, the Atari 5200 does this automatically for you, so no longer do you have to get up, move over to the TV, hit the button, and go back whenever you want to play your games. It's just an automatic thing that we saw transferred in every game system after that. Also, there were two different versions of the power.
Yeah, the power and TV switch.
Yes, and the first version, it was a single box, or a single cord that would go through.
Yeah, you had a single cord that you hooked both the TV connector that had like an RF out to plug into cable-ready TVs, and a regular, and the power switch where you would plug it in, and you'd actually run the power through the TV switch, which kind of caused a fire hazard in some cases, because you really aren't supposed to run those two things together.
So you're supposed to be prepared with a fire hydrant. Every Atari 5200 should have came with a small fire hydrant.
Well, that's what that door was for.
Or fire
Did you know that?
extinguisher, my bad.
You could put a mini fire extinguisher in
there. I believe it. The thing on the back of this system, you could definitely fit a mini fire extinguisher in.
Now piece of note on that is that is for the 2-port system, or the 4-port system.
Yes. And so also they had what has become today as known as the 2 separate cords that would come out. But just speaking of that a little bit, that is something that we're used to in the nowadays, having those separately, but also having it so you don't have to switch the TV every time you play, which is a lot easier. I also want to mention for this game, Centipede, it did come with a controller overlay, and the controller overlay is pretty pointless because it has 2 options on it, being the 1 to 2 player or the game start. The game select.
The game select.
And it's pretty pointless that I looked, but it only came with 2, and that's a waste of cellophane or plastic or whatever that thing is, and it's pretty pointless, as I've said before. So,
we wanted to go a little bit more onto what Atari was founded on, how Nolan Bushnell started the company, and how it got completely out of his hands by the time they actually got into the home console market.
You can count. We pick 'em up and we put 'em down. Come on down, come on down. We got those legs that are nice and hairy, but you can't shoot us 'cause we're too scary. Ow!
Atari presents Centipede. Come on.
New Gen Gamers.